You keep going. Yeah, keep going. Unless you want to go next. Yeah, have some cane. Yeah, that works.
Maury, turn the volume down on your laptop.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay. Oh, are we starting?
Oh, joy.
Thumbs up?
Know how to mute it?
Okay. We're going to start, folks.
Just, can you hit mute on that? Okay, thank you.
Back. This is the Tompkins County Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Expanded Budget Committee meeting for September 24th. And we're going to start by giving Norma Jane a few minutes to talk about what the process is going to be to have your proposed amendments to the administrator's budget talked about when we get to the voting meetings.
All right, folks, I'm going to look at our budget director, too, Corey, to jump in and help
Then
us as well.
I should say Corey, perhaps.
That's okay. We're a team. So Corey sent out a form this morning for folks to be able to submit their amendments. You've seen it, but if not, let us know. We can resubmit. It is set up so that you can either, it's an increase or decrease in the budget. It has the, the notations. It's really set up as we've done it in the past. The only difference is it shows whether it's you're adding or you're subtracting from the budget. And we also, it's coming to you through last year we sent a job form. It's going to be a Microsoft form. So it looks slightly different, but all of the fields should be the same. So if you have questions, please ask.
And just to add, we are receiving your replies to that, or your submissions to that.
Part two would be, I've had some legislators ask about how we're going to actually pick which of the submittals we do first. In the past, sometimes we've done first come, first serve, and some folks have thought, well, maybe there were larger or smaller amendments that maybe should be looked at first because it might make a difference on how they voted on some of the other amendments. So I thought I'd just open it up to see if anybody has any opinions on how we should go forward with those amendments as they come in. Shauna.
Thanks, Mike. I actually think it makes sense that if legislators are putting in amendments, that the amendments that have the most sponsors should go up to the top, because if you have 7 people that are signing off on an amendment, then more than likely that will pass. And as we see that pass, we could see our spreadsheet and see all the money that's going out the door. And it makes it easier for us to make decisions if there's some type of majority that's agreeing upon one of our amendments.
Deborah?
Well, I think that's a good idea, but I also think that given how tight our budgeting is this year, we should consider the legislative amendments that cut before we start considering the legislative amendments that add, because that will inform our decision as to how much we can add.
Amanda?
That's what I was going to say.
Other thoughts? So we'll muddle through with those suggestions then. I think they're very good ones.
And I'm sorry, one more. We'll begin sending out a document to everyone as soon as we have this compiled, so that you can see what amendments have come through this far. So we'll be sending them out periodically and posting them on the website.
I'll just remind folks that amendments are proper right on through the day the night we actually adopt the budget. You can actually make amendments there. I hope there aren't too many at that point, but it is possible. Ann?
Thank you. So for Norma, I think that if somebody puts in an amendment, and I didn't look, you said it's a little different than last time, if somebody puts in an amendment, and so if a colleague of mine puts in an amendment and I want to add my name to that, is it, we send you an email, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can send one to Corey or me, and we'll take care of it from there.
Okay, so an email, okay,
We'll add it to the list.
thank you. And we'll see that, will we get
You will.
updates in what type of,
We're going to add it to that same form. So whatever document, we'll add it to the form, we'll resend it and let you know that it's been updated.
well, how will I know that my colleagues are putting in an amendment? Like what's,
We're going to send you copies of the amendments as we get them. It looks like we've got 15 of them right now, so we'll compile those, send those out in an email probably tomorrow. And then if folks come back and say they want to support amendment number 4, for example, we will add that to the list and reprint or repost those pages so you can see what's changed on those.
and will that be like on a website or?
We're going to post it to the county website.
Okay.
As well as email it to all legislators and the county administrator and the legislature
Okay,
clerks.
so this is helpful for me. So like in real time, if I get to one of those emails, I can go to the spreadsheet or something or and see what everybody has put in? Right.
It'll be as real as we get it updated, yes.
So it'll be a link in an email
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
can follow along?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Shawna?
So just to confirm that if there is an agency that is going to be listed, they'll be notified of this as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll start our presentations. And we're going to start with our county attorney, Maury Josephson. And Maury has Holly with him, and Aaron, too.
Good afternoon. I was going to say I'm joined by Holly Mosier, Deputy County Attorney, and Aaron Murphy, the person who keeps our office running, whose work defies a formal title.
This is section 4, page 52 of the books.
I'll share my screen to put up the presentation. So I've basically divided the presentations into 3 parts, an illustration of what we, an overview of what we do with our current 3 FTEs and 1 vacancy, the challenges we face, and why we've put in our OTR request to restore the 5% cut, which basically could only come from personnel and the additional paralegal position had talked about last year. So
Can you get closer to the mic? Thanks.
in terms of what we do, we're basically divided into 4 practice areas: advisory, transactional, family court, juvenile justice litigation, and civil litigation, and FOIL. In terms of what we have going on at the moment, on the advisory side, we have 10 or so open policy and legislative initiatives that run the gamut of county operations, from procurement, reserves, sheltering, murder, local enforcement, tax collections, the perennial RPTL foreclosures. I wish there was one day that would go by where there wasn't a real property tax foreclosure question. Tax exemptions, records retention, local minimum wage project, and as varied as transporting prisoners. In family court, we have approximately 47 matters pending involving juvenile delinquency cases, PINS cases, all of which are handled beginning to end internally. For our other, kinds of civil litigation, we have 21 active matters. Obviously, not all 21 are burning issues or taking up a lot of activity, a lot of time, and nearly all of it is now being handled through Jim Romer's office, through Romer Wallens. One thing I'd note, only because it's, in part because it's being talked about a lot, is that if we do MRTA enforcement, if we do local enforcement, our office would have a substantial role in, for example, a padlocking case. And adding that to the portfolio could involve a significant amount of effort to the extent that's coming down the pike. For example, if a store is padlocked, you need to be in court within 4 days, make a full presentation on that violation, so which means basically everything else would be put on hold while that's happening. Another big area of our practice is FOIL. In just this year, year to date, we've started 303 requests for records. Most are routine. Some are time-consuming head scratchers. Take a lot of effort to gather the documents, review the documents, determine exemptions, and deal with responses from the public. Now, how do we do this among the three of us? We've roughly broken down how we apply our FTEs, and about 0.9 of that goes to the advisory, 3/4 of an FTE to family court litigation, and approximately 20% of our paralegal time. For civil litigation, it's low, about 25% of an attorney FTE and 10% of paralegal. And then FOIL, a little bit of attorney and a lot of paralegal time. And we have our vacancy. And the FTEs are in the chart from the budget book. Now, basically our 5% cut in the 5% cut scenario, the only place where we could come, basically that's $30,000, give or take a few dollars on either side. And the only place that could come from in our budget was personnel. The 3 FTEs that we have working right now are fully occupied and then some. So what we did was, and we do need that additional help, but had not recruited for it successfully last year. So what we suggested as part of the cut scenario is that we would delay hiring that person until May 1 of next year. And what our OTR request does, it's simple. It just adds it adds that back in to keep it as part of our base funding, because at the moment, if you were to find some place to pull 5% out of it, basically the challenges that we have now would just be exacerbated. It would be an issue of having less time to spend on civil litigation, and a big impact on the advisory function. We're already in a difficult triage mode with that, with those types of things, where we attend to emergencies first, and the bigger picture policy issues tend to get pushed down the list and pushed down the calendar, even though they're considerably more important than a lot of the fires. So we're asking, and the county administrator approved our OTR to basically keep our base intact. Because even maintenance of effort doesn't really capture everything that our office is doing. And I think I've mentioned in the past that probably mid-year we'll be back with a more formal proposal to flesh out the staffing, mainly staffing. There's not much else in our budget that's needed for us to, really help facilitate moving the county's objectives forward. And with that, I am ready to take your questions, as are Holly and Aaron.
Let's start with Shauna.
Thank you. A few years ago, and it might have even been last year, the legislature had approved to purchase a FOIL software. I was wondering if that had been purchased or if there was any thought to doing that. Okay.
The thought's there, yeah.
Do you think that would help?
Well, you approved it, but it didn't get any further than that.
And what?
It didn't get further than that.
Can you use the mic, Aaron?
I think we actually did allocate the expenses and provide approval for that. So perhaps what needs to happen is we need to figure out how to get that, because that was something that whenever we were in the transition between county attorneys and you guys were like hunkering down in survival mode, I think that's something that the legislature had decided to definitely move forward on. So I just want to make sure that was a conversation that we had and something that we had talked about approving. So.
We did.
Okay.
We did, and right now the FOIL system is somewhat clunky. I think it's sort of, you have to go from one place to another place, and everything doesn't all live together. So it would be helpful, but kind of a relatively small part of the solution.
Other questions? Go ahead, Ann, then Randy.
Thank you. So with the recommended reinstatement of the 5% in the county administrator's budget, so that, I guess I'm not clear, so you still wouldn't hire a paralegal even if you found one now? Or even before, you said a couple months into the year?
The answer is, with the 5% cut, we certainly wouldn't fill that vacancy until approximately mid-year next year. If there were somebody, unfortunately, the recruiting process didn't yield this. If there were somebody who, we could get, I think we would proceed with that hire, but I think we need to come to the legislature with a fuller recommendation as to what the county attorney's office should look like overall. So I think adding additional paralegal assistance is great. It would get us part of the way there, and we're not able to do it for this budget presentation or this budget cycle because I'm relatively new, but I think that we will have not so much a wish list or a shopping list, but a list of necessities within the next several months.
So in the next couple of months, you're going to be looking at what does the office look like and what are you needing? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, first I have a question. So the OTR for the FOIL software, would we have to approve that again for this budget? Is that how that works? Or has it already been approved, and just how does that work?
I think it was approved in a past budget.
I know, but if you
So
don't-
what happened to the money? Did you
If
not?
you-
We didn't get the money.
I think you have to
It was
purchase it,
approved,
though.
but then the money wasn't allocated.
Well, you guys can think about that and come back to us if you think it's a good idea to do it, I guess. But I was just curious how it worked.
Why don't we give our budget people a chance to look into that later and come back and talk with you folks about it.
Okay. It looks like you guys are going to be way under budget, over $100,000 this year, because you didn't have the people, right?
Right.
So I appreciate you guys working like you did. But you mentioned that you're using outside counsel for civil matters. I don't see that expense in your budget, so I'm trying to understand where that goes.
That money is paid by insurance reserve,
Okay.
so we don't pay for it. It would be in that budget.
And the other question I have, can you charge for FOILs, or do you have to provide them for free?
It's like 25 cents a page or something. But now that it's all, you know, electronic, not really. There's some rules about time, but no, not really.
I would think that would be a good way to gain some money, so just a thought. So always looking for a place for revenue somewhere.
They feels that that would be a deterrent for people asking, so they don't
Yeah.
want that to happen.
There's lots
That
of things
too.
we'd love to charge for.
However much Aaron would like that to happen.
Thank you.
I've got Deborah next.
Yeah, I'm curious. You mentioned that you had been trying to hire another paralegal and you weren't having much luck. Is it your perception that we're not paying enough, or what do you think the problem is?
We tried a couple different things. We were trying administrative assistants first, and that, I don't know if it was money or, we just didn't get applicants.
And then we tried paralegal
We did the
aid,
paralegal launch.
which, for those positions, I felt like the salaries were competitive.
Okay.
Because I always check when I see jobs online, whether it's at the state level or at Cornell or whatever, that are like legal paralegals. I always check it because I want to make sure that it's going to be a competitive pay.
Right.
And I felt that the pay at the time was competitive. We just weren't getting quality candidates that had the experience that we were looking for.
Okay, thanks.
Ann?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question, because someone mentioned about the paying for the pages for the FOIL request. Is it the 25 cents only for a printed page?
Yeah.
So you couldn't
Right.
charge to email somebody
Correct.
something? And are most people okay with, are you doing electronic?
For the most part, yeah.
People are okay with that? Okay.
I think we try and use Dropboxes and such. If it was a huge electronic file, which I haven't seen here yet, but I recall at the city, we used to charge $5 for the hard drive.
Anyone else? Thanks to all three of you. Really appreciate the presentation, and we'll think about what you said.
Thank you. And thank you for all the presenters coming after us for moving us off, because I'm going to stay here, and my colleagues are going to go off and do other very worthwhile.
Okay.
All right, good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I neglected to mention at the opening that we are going to have an executive session at the end. We've been requested to do that. Next, we go to our rural libraries, including our Finger Lakes Library System.
How do we allocate something and they don't get the money? You guys all say. How do we allocate something and they don't get the money?
Nobody in that chair.
Oh, you got one?
That coming. Just take the nameplate down.
I don't.
Musical chairs.
How do we?
Good to go? I think so. Thank you for letting us come. Thank you for your support for so many years. My name's Diane Pamel. I am the library director in Dryden at the Southworth Library. Go ahead.
Susie Gutenberger Fitzpatrick. I'm the director of the Lansing Community Library.
And I'm Sue Chafee. I'm the director at Newfield Public Library. Happy.
Sarah Glagowski, Executive Director of Finger Lakes Library System.
And the directors from Groton Library, Sarah Noble, and from the Ulysses Philomathic Library in Trumansburg, Laura Mellenhausen, thank you. Could not be here, but they are here in spirit, that's right. So we are the rural libraries, and we are the new community hub. Next slide. Okay, who are we? I can't read the slide because my, okay.
Perhaps one of your colleagues could help.
Yeah, perhaps. We are the community hubs. We have the pulse of our communities. Every rural library, every rural community is different.
and every rural library is different as well.
Yeah.
And
Diane, would it be better if you moved to one of the other chairs? Could you see the screen better?
no, I can squint. It's okay. Thank you, though.
Okay.
They'll help me.
Yeah,
They'll help you.
We no longer have the screens in operation.
That's
What we used to do, all right.
Yeah, I know. We're all like, we've been here, we've done this. Anyways, thank you for letting it. If you look at our libraries, we are the community centers for most of them. We're open when a lot of other places are not, and we're a place where people can come. If you look at some of our numbers in 2023, a snapshot for all the libraries, we had collectively over almost 110,000 visitors. And just so you know, the population in Dryden is just about 2,000 people. So giving you a sense of who we are to our communities, circulation of 275,000 items, 14,054 programs you can see there, and a lot of people, almost 17,000 some, came to use our computer stations. We also have things like hotspots and Wi-Fi availability for our communities that they can't find elsewhere. So we are vital as connectors and hubs of our community. We provide programs, we provide materials and services that people will not get in other places in our communities. And everyone's different. If you look at Newfield, the library provides a connection for the community, something that Sue has been working on, making sure the Newfield residents have a place that's a connector. Susie's been working on after-school programming because there's nowhere for kids to go after school, so she provides programs. In Groton, there's a food desert, I guess. There's no grocery stores, so that's been a priority for Sarah in Groton. So each one of us is looking at our communities and providing something without it being a whole new social service agency, just doing what we do to help the people that come into our doors. For my library, a priority for me has been for many years just to be a friendly face as well as to have information. We know our community, we know the people. No matter who they are, when they walk in our libraries, they're welcome. So we are, I think, a pretty important place in each of our communities. So next slide. The impact of a budget cut for us, because we work on some pretty small budgets, you can see when you look at our numbers, we do a lot with a little. And it would come to about $2,000 per library plus the reduced funding for Finger Lakes, which is, I don't know if you're all, you can ask, but I don't know if you're aware of what the Finger Lakes Library System does for us with interlibrary loans, help with our technology, and other services and resources. So with an impact of that loss of $2,000 per library, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 20 to 25% of our materials budget for those books and movies and other items that we purchase for our libraries. It's the totality for most of us of what a cost of living increase would be for our staff. It's almost our whole programming budgets for many of us. We do a lot with grants, but our solid programs, story times, or whatever it is we provide for the community comes through the programming budget. So I'm not sure the direct impact of the technology. Each new computer, which we have to replace every 5 years, is about $800. So maybe that's 3 computers we couldn't replace. So it's a real impact on what we're doing. Not sure where Sue and I were chatting, which one would we choose? How would we do this? We're not sure exactly where that $2,000 is going to come from our budgets, but it's going to squeak. So next slide is the numbers. That's what it is for 5 libraries plus the library system. It's a little bit of money spread out a long way. It's impacting a lot of people and a lot of communities with a small amount. So we would even, flat funding is hard for us as well, but a cut in funding is gonna pinch. So I'll let these ladies chime in with anything they have to say.
Sure. Diane did a great job summarizing a lot of the great things that we do, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how we are connectors. In Newfield, we are focusing on outreach, learning more about our community, and trying to fill all of the needs. We are building relationships with the town, the school. We worked with the town to write a grant to Tompkins County Tourism to add a park and make some improvements at the covered bridge. So that is a way for our library to connect the town of Newfield to the community members and all kind of jump in together to make a big improvement in our community. So besides grant writing, we have also worked really hard to build a relationship with the school who provides bus transportation for our after-school program, which is vital. The program is vital and the bus transportation is vital. The program wouldn't happen without it. And I also, we look at ourselves as sort of the voice of the county in our rural areas. All of the great resources that the county departments provide, we're able to have conversations about them. We've got posters on our bulletin boards, but we take it to the next level to really inform all the community members about all of the resources that are available to them.
I would just say, to piggyback on that, in Lansing, we have become the community hub for Tompkins County Whole Health. They come every other week and table in Lansing, and many people in Lansing do not want to drive into Ithaca. They don't seem to want to go very far outside of Lansing, and especially we have some density across the street now with Milton Meadows that are able to come and walk to us. We have more buses coming into Lansing now, and the library is right where the bus stop is, so we have a lot more opportunities to be able to share the resources that the county has and to be able to help that. I have chair yoga for older adults that happens right before the county hub happens on Mondays, so we're able to kind of share different services and get different people into the libraries. And that we're very thankful for that relationship with the county and being able to bring in the Tompkins County Whole Health, and we see that impact on a daily basis and be able to share those extra services. So we definitely go a long way beyond books and even just programming. So. But thank you for your support. You guys have always been very supportive of us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I don't know if the system has.
I can fill in for Groton and Trumansburg since they're not here with us. As Diane pointed out earlier, Groton does a phenomenal job. We really use them as kind of a pace setter for other libraries with their food distribution, their food pantry efforts. They have a hygiene closet. I think they were our first library in our system that did that. They are a food desert. Sarah Knoebel, the director there, does a phenomenal job getting out in the community, really understanding the community needs. So while a lot of it is still regular programming like story time, she's also doing innovative cooking classes and food distribution, and especially she does a kids farmers market type food distribution for children too. In Trumansburg, again, a very stable community hub in that community, right in the heart of the community, has excellent relationships with schools, local preschools, et cetera. So really just a community connector like all really of the 5 libraries in our system for Tompkins County are. So just a sense of how our libraries are funded in case you have questions. Every library in our system is funded differently. They don't get a lot of money from the state. On average, a library only gets, it's dependent on size and service area, but the majority of our 33 libraries get roughly $1,400 a year state money. Some of them obviously get county money, village money, town money. You are our most robust county funder of the 5 counties that the system serves, so we thank you for that. And then some of our libraries also have a school ballot referendum or school district referendum that they can get some tax supplementation for their budgets. So just in case you had any questions on that. But county funding is important from our libraries, and any little bit helps. So thank you for considering.
Well, we're going to go to questions. I do have a disclosure I always make every year, and that is I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Southworth Library Association in Dryden, and also the president, and both of those are unpaid positions. Questions? Randy?
Yes, is the amount that the county provides, is that split equally among all the libraries?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I've been doing this for almost 20 years, the library director position. And when I first started, each library presented itself separately to the legislature. And we decided many years ago that rather than trying to determine which community needed a little more for this or a little more for that, we were going to come to you as one unified rural libraries unit, divided equally, and it just kind of is a representation of how we work together.
Thank you. And you showed the numbers of people that were using libraries in 2023. Is that number increasing, staying the same? How do you?
It depends on the library.
Right.
We've seen, we have a lot of people that come in and use our library in Dryden. I think we've all seen, luckily, some recovery from COVID. So we're getting back. We're getting close to our pre-COVID numbers.
We're definitely busier in Lansing.
And busier, if I look at circulation numbers for Groton, for instance, they don't have a higher number of circulation of materials, but their library is used extensively because of the other services they provide. So we tried to give you a snapshot with numbers we can quantify, but there's so much more that happens.
Sarah, can I just mention, and I'll come to you. Sarah, I was very, very pleased to learn that the Finger Lakes Library System is going to have your annual meeting at our new conference center.
Yes, we are. Friday, October 18th.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Finger Lakes Library System's main offices are located in the town of Dryden. Mm-hmm. And the central library for the whole, was it 31 libraries?
33.
33 libraries is the Tompkins County Public Library.
Yes. Correct. So every year we have an annual meeting for our membership where both directors and trustees. So one of the things 2 years ago now, New York State has required for all library trustees in New York State is all trustees on a library board, regardless of the type of library, must complete 2 hours of trustee training annually. And the system falls for the main provider of that. So our annual meeting actually is a great space for us to provide at least an hour of trustee training for that. So it's something that we work with trustees for all of our libraries on, is getting that continuing education so they have the skill set to be good trustees for their libraries.
Ann.
Thank you. I know, talking to people all across the county, it doesn't matter what age, but the accessibility to be able to get to our library downtown in Ithaca can be a challenge. So there's many reasons why the rural libraries are really important. and including all the things that you guys have said, that you just pivot, oh, we need food, we need this, we need these programs. And I was talking with Susie earlier today about all the different programs that you provide out in Lansing, and also about, for people driving and, or just taking a bus or however, to get there. The rural libraries, we can't depend on just one main library. And I'll get to my question in a second, but I'll never forget the day I went to go walk in the Ulysses Philomathic Library, and there was this kid, I'll say, some maybe high school or middle school student walking out with a bag of fresh food because they have their food distribution is fresh food from local farms. So to see carrots and different things, and this kid beaming, and I said, what are you going to do with all that? And said, I don't know, but my mom's going to be happy. So it's really great to see all the things you're doing. So so I have two questions, but one, overall, have you seen numbers of in-person bounce back after COVID?
We have.
We're close to our pre-COVID counts.
And then in the numbers where you said about visitors and stuff like that, do you keep track of electronic visitors, or is that like through the Finger Lakes Library system?
Yeah,
because that's a whole nother
Yeah, it's a mixture. So we can keep track of like database usage, e-content usage, which is Libby or Overdrive. We handle all of that at Finger Lakes. That definitely peaked during COVID, talking about e-content. The usage of that absolutely peaked during COVID when the libraries were shut down. It has since decreased slightly. It's still raised from say 2019 pre-pandemic. But in all honesty, for our system, and I think again, this leads into the ruralness of our system, only about 20% of library circulation in our system is for e-content. So it's still a relatively small number of how people are checking out library materials.
Okay, interesting. And Susie, do you mind just telling us real quick about, you said you're going to working on improving the accessibility to your building in the future?
Yes, so the Lansing Library has only been a library for 16 years, and we are housed in the old school, old town hall, and we have an addition with some really poorly designed steps. All the weather hits them and they're very steep. So many people use our accessible entrance, and we also outgrew the space as soon as we walked into it. So we are just on the beginning stages of an addition project that we will take off those stairs, have a first floor accessible entrance, because we don't want to just be accessible. We want to actually be able to invite people to come in. It's really difficult to come into our library now. You have to take a scary elevator. So we do plan to have that. Our programming room right now is maxed out most weeks at our story time gets to 30 people, and that's how many people are supposed to be in there. The fire marshal doesn't come. But we are hoping to put on a little L shape. We're landlocked, so we don't have a lot of space, but we can take over one space next to us. And so we're just on the beginnings of that, figuring out how to fundraise and to write grants, and the system is incredibly helpful with that. And the state, we have access to some state construction aid we can apply for. But yes, you'll be hearing about that hopefully a lot in the next 2 years, because we really hope to get that project done and be able to support after-school programming, teen programming, and older adults much more effectively than we are able to with our confined space now. I will say that having the hybrid meeting technology that we were able to get through the county last year has just been invaluable to our patrons. I'm running an effective board meeting tomorrow night because I'm going to have it. The Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have used it. Many older groups have used it. So, but we're hoping to put on that addition to be able to have a more accessible building and be able to grow our spaces and our services to our rural community.
Thank you. That one's closest to my in-laws, so I'm very interested in that one.
We all have good parking, so you can.
They do. They have good parking everywhere. I'll jump in quickly. I'll speak for Laura in Trumansburg, speaking about accessibility. And the Trumansburg Library has applied successfully for a New York State construction grant this year. along with Dryden, along with Lansing. Lansing and Dryden are going for new boilers, things of that nature, heating systems. But Trumansburg is doing an accessibility grant through the New York State Library Construction Aid, and they are going to be getting a grant for over $30,000 to make their parking lot more accessible to the side park, side entrance of the area of the library where they do a lot of outside programming, especially for kids in the summer. So that will have a nice accessible path from the parking lot to the side of the building so more people can easily take part in summer programming outside. So
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to Susan Curry.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I'm not on camera because I had eye surgery today and I look a little bit like a pirate. But I just wanted to say I had the pleasure of working with these ladies and the honor. I know all the things that libraries do. And one of the things that we often talk about these days is sustainability. And libraries are among the first organizations that have supported and originated sustainability. They buy a book once and it's used by thousands of people. So I think that's a really important economic factor to think about with libraries. Also for the use of technology, how they leverage that, electronic resources. And in particular, our rural libraries provide some of the most important services to people who would otherwise not have access to that information. And in addition, Sarah Glogowski has become a leader on the state level in terms of public libraries, and I'd like to thank her for that.
Randy?
Yes, you were presented with putting a budget together that was a 5% cut. What would the difference be if you received 5% more?
Well, in terms of the impact of what they would do, yeah, I think definitely things that I see as a system director that the rural struggle with is being able to offer a cost of living, a good wage. They really struggle with that. I think increase in collections, increase in programming, it would absolutely be, a marked difference in being able to provide more services to their communities. Yeah, $2,000 doesn't mean a lot to other organizations, but it definitely will offer, a wide variety of programming, cost benefits.
Updating our nonfiction collection for kids. Those books are really expensive. There's lots of things that we tend to do without because we're trying to do so much more with less often.
Yeah. And we're pretty aggressive in pursuing grant funds. I've gotten a lot of funding for different programs through grants or specific needs, but when it comes to our basic needs like staff wages and materials, it's harder to find money. Buying a book isn't necessarily as sexy, nor is paying someone a little bit more.
Yeah.
So those are areas that we can't necessarily get grant funding. A lot of grants don't let you include staff time. So it's critical for the basic things that we want to keep doing to have that steady funding that doesn't have a lot of requirements on it.
Yeah, and I would add for staffing, our staff right now is bare bones in Newfield. So we have one staff on duty for every shift. So it's up to the director to pick up the slack. So I think having additional people there, in the summer, we partnered with our elementary school librarian. And so she had a small summer job at the library. The kids absolutely love her. And it gave continuity to the kids. And they were excited to go back to school, to see her as well. So I would envision being able to have additional staff to be able to do special things like that for the kids.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for your clear presentation. Thanks for all of you being here and the other two being in here in spirit. We appreciate that. And we will take what you've said to us into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from our county historian, Laura Johnson Kelly. This is in section 4, page 64 of your big book.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you today. May I have the first slide, please? Thank you.
Can you wait just 1 second? Why don't you go ahead, Laura?
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity of being present in front of you today in person so I can talk to you about this. Unfortunately, our 2025 budget, as well as our 2024 budget, have been affected by a few unforeseen costs. We did not understand that we'd be paying fringe, both for 2024 and 2025. And unfortunately, by the time I realized that this was actually going to be an added expense, my salary is $10,000 a year. I'm part-time. I'm not benefits eligible. This was something that had never been in the budget when Carol Kamen was historian, but I'm actually salaried by the county now, so apparently we should have anticipated this, but we were kind of blindsided by this cost, which is why these numbers look pretty.
I'll get you just a second. Can we let her finish and then I'll come to you?
Sure.
Is there something you can clarify?
I think if we clarify it, we might be able to obviate the need for some of
that. Laura?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So I think in the time since we've last spoken, we have, staff have to address the fringe situation with HR so that it's not charged.
Right.
So we can, I think we don't have to worry about that part in your presentation.
Wonderful. That's fabulous news. You know, the numbers that you see on the screen, a 5% budget impact would actually result in a 21% program cut if we end up paying fringe. If we don't, then it is still a substantial impact. The absolute dollars are small. The budget that was approved for 2024 included $8,500 for publications produced by the Historical Commission. These booklets include one that we've done so far this year for the statues honoring Miss Lucy Brown, founder of Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, and Frances Perkins, the first woman cabinet secretary in the U.S. under the Roosevelt administration, both of whom have a very strong Ithaca connection. They now have statues placed in Ithaca. Those statues were not paid for with county funds. They were funded through an anonymous donor. The booklet, we did an initial run of 200 copies. They were gone the first few minutes of that celebration. We had hundreds of people there. It was really well attended. Many of you were there, and you know, widespread interest throughout the community. You know, the next booklet that we are doing in calendar year 2024 is about the history of the LGBTQ+ community. For 2025, we are proposing sort of a little bit of a gear change. Some booklets that would honor the rural history of the county. For example, one on Dan B. Barnes. We have a couple of other possibilities that are discussing the rural history of the town of Ulysses, and another one about Caroline. So we have a little bit of geographic diversity and spread. The Historical Commission is not just about Ithaca. The rest of the county counts. One of my tasks as county historian is to meet monthly with the municipal historians of Tompkins County. That includes representatives from every single town and village in the county, and we meet every month at the Tompkins County Public Library, so I'm a big supporter of libraries. I think they're wonderful community gathering places. But the $940 cut in the budget will come directly out of the publications, these booklets. If we end up having to pay fringe on top of that, and perhaps that won't happen, but maybe you could move to the second slide. You know, with the OTR request of $940 restored, If we end up paying Fringe, it still would result in a 10% cut to the publication budget. If that's no longer an issue, it would be wonderful to have our funding restored. We plan to fund 2 publications out of that. And as I say, we have 3 possibilities. The first 2 to be completed for 2025 would be those funded in that calendar round. And the next one could be funded in 2026, we would hope. These publications are distributed to the History Center and Historic Ithaca free of charge to them. They are allowed to charge a modest sum for them in exchange for distributing them to the public. There's been a lot of interest in these local history publications because they can be offered for sale for $5 or $10. They're something people can pick up and they can have. And, there's a whole long list of them on the website. I think that the dollar request I'm requesting is pretty modest. It will have a big impact. I hope you'll consider restoring our request. These slides I prepared with that we'd be charged Fringe for calendar year 2024. That would actually result in more than a 50% budget cut, and we've already committed to paying for things. So, I don't know if the Fringe situation will only apply to 2025 or will it be retroactive for 2024? Is that something?
We're addressing it.
Okay, you're addressing it. Okay. If we do end up paying this Fringe that we weren't aware of for calendar year 2024, I just do want to point out that we won't be able to pay our bills for the second booklet this year. We will have to pay the designer who plans them out, but we wouldn't be able to afford to actually get it printed till 2025. So, what we would be able to do in calendar year 2025 would be affected by whatever happens with this Fringe situation. So. Are there any questions or comments?
If you're done with the presentation, we'll open it up now for questions. Ann Corman, then Amanda Champion.
For the, if I have this correct, semi-quincentennial celebration, what year is that? And did I say it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So we are entering into a multi-year period where commemorating the American Revolution, it started already. What happened 250 years ago this month, the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. That was September and October 1774. It goes through the end of the Revolutionary War period.
Okay.
And I will point out one other significant thing. Today is September 24th. September 24th, 1779, the Native American village of Corry Organelle, which was situated approximately where the Ithaca Beer Company is now, was burned to the ground during the Lieutenant Henry Dearborn expedition, which was an offshoot of the Sullivan-Clinton campaign. That is also part of the Revolutionary War. That's one of our local legacies. And of course, a lot of Revolutionary War soldiers were granted lands in Tompkins County, and they settled here after the war. Everything we know and see here is a consequence of what happened during the Revolutionary War. The homes we all live in, the streets we drive down, wouldn't be here if the Revolutionary War had happened in a different manner. And yes, we'd love to do some programming with that. We're sort of in the planning stages. The bicentennial was centered around 1976. Most people think of 1776 as the important year, but there were important things that happened all the way through. The 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party passed last December. So, we're well into a 250th kind of commemoration. And I attended a conference in Saratoga Springs the week before last that was geared towards, it was run by the state historian, and it was geared towards how local historians can incorporate programming for this. So, yes, that's another really important task of the Historical Commission, is to commemorate these past historic events. And, I really hope to be able to get some grants and undergo some, really interesting programs.
Thank you.
Amanda.
Thanks for being here. I look to all of you to correct me, but I'm not remembering that we turned the funding into a salary. Did we do that last year?
No, there was a request to, instead of paying in one lump sum, to pay, in payroll with in installments. And so we accommodated that request internally.
Okay, I guess, but so you're calling it a salary? I mean,
it's a stipend. It's just a matter of how the money is paid, either in one lump sum or throughout the year.
Okay, and then but a stipend gets fringe?
No, that's the error that we are attempting to correct.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a stipend, it is going to be a salary, because you're trying to get the fringe paid.
Stipend. They're trying to keep it a stipend.
Norma?
Yeah, if I could just clarify. So, yes, when this changed from being a stipend to a salary, we are, by rules, we're supposed to be charging a minimum fringe.
Sure.
What happened, and I'm not entirely sure how this happened, but somehow the salary began coming out of the historian's budget. It's budgeted in county administration, and is being charged full fringe. So there's a whole lot of things going a little wonky with this, and we are addressing it. But it's been budgeted for. It's not been budgeted in this particular budget, but somehow ended up being charged out of this budget through payroll processes.
Okay.
So we're addressing all of that at this point.
I guess I still don't understand, when, not to go back in time, but when Carol was the historian and she was getting $8,000 or $9,000, was it just going, was it a salary, like a payment that she took? Or my understanding at that time that she was using it for the publications and the programs and all that. So is this like a salary that Laura takes home and puts in her own bank account? That's my confusion.
If I may, there's a historian stipend, but there's also through her budget is the programming part, which is separate from the historians. And I think Carol got her $8,000 or whatever it was, but there was also money, it was, whether it was used for the Civil War Commission or the Bicentennial Commission or the Historical Commission, separate from that.
Right, there's $6,682 in program expense. So I'm just trying to be very clear that this is actually a payment to whichever historian, whoever happens to be the historian. Okay, thank you. Correct.
Greg.
And bringing the county historian into the county administrator's budget is a relatively new, didn't that happen in 2021? Because wasn't there a piece of it that was funded through the tourism dollars? Because I remember Carol used to come and ask for some portion through the STPB. And then I can't remember if it was during the pandemic or at some point it was brought back into. Is that
my recollection, Greg, is that it was not funded by STPB, but what you may remember about Carol is she chaired the Celebrations Grant Review Committees for many years, and the STPB money from that came under those committee reviews.
Lisa?
I'm having a vague recollection along the lines of what you're saying, but I would need to go back and kind of recreate that history to tell you for
exactly
sure.
what it was.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're getting a great bang for our buck. I can tell you as somebody who's not a history buff, never really had much of appreciation for it till I got older. And I'm still in that process of aging, as we all are.
You got a long way to go, Greg.
I hope. But I just thank you for the work that you do, because it is interesting, and the more that people know about it, I think the more people can start to enjoy it and realize the important role that it does play. So as somebody who's become a convert, I appreciate it. Those little booklets are super easy, super helpful. You can sort of sit down and digest them and get just enough and have a curiosity for more. So the question I have is, how are people able to support your work and the work? Would it be through the History Center, or if they wanted to to like donate, to support those booklets or things like that? Is there a mechanism for the public to do that?
We don't have a mechanism for that right now. The History Center is a separate entity, as is Historic Ithaca. I've attended events for both organizations in the last week. I try to equally support them, but I should, in spirit of full disclosure, before I was appointed county historian, I was already serving on the board of the History Center, and I have continued to serve on that board. Rich John was formerly on, Amanda Champion is on it right now. I try not to involve myself in fundraising for them, even though that is one of the roles of a board member, because, it might create the appearance of a conflict. In terms of contributing to the county historian, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I don't know, how we would manage that. If somebody wanted to contribute money to a specific booklet and say, I want those pictures in color, I'd be happy to give you X dollars to, one of the other booklets that's slated to come out is one on the architect William Henry Miller, and there will be a lot of pictures in that. Most of them will be black and white.
I think that a donation would have to go to the county,
Right. Yeah.
directed to the historians.
And the county can accept donations in that regard?
No, we're tax exempt.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. I feel like there's an opportunity with some of these booklets to tap into part of those, communities, right? I mean, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community myself, right? When you said like, oh, that may get delayed, I'm like, well, how many friends can I get to give, $5 or $10 or whatever to,
Right.
to make up these differences? Or if there's architecture buffs, right? People would, I feel like, love to support something like that. And if there is a mechanism to do that, I think it'd be a worthy endeavor for you to figure out what that is or how to do that if it's not, more work than it's worth.
Well, I will contact the administration after this, and we'll have to have a conversation about, what we can do to make that be a possibility. I agree with you. I think history can be really exciting, and, we're touching on so many different constituencies. I'm excited about this book we may be doing on the barns within the county. That's a radical departure from, highbrow architecture like William Henry Miller or histories of specific communities within the town. But there are a lot of old barn buffs out there. And, we have a guy named Rick Lazarus who's on board along with the Danby Town historian, Marianne Barr. And, it sounds like it's going to be a really dynamic volume. Marianne's an artist. She has already drawn illustrations of many of the historic barns in Danby. Apparently there are woodworkers guilds. I mean, I didn't even know that these things existed, but, there are whole groups of people who are dedicated to preserving antique farm implements, and maybe they would be interested in helping fund some of these projects. That's, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Lisa.
I just wanted to follow up on the previous comment by Greg. That looks as though the county historian the stipend for county historian, or at least $5,500, was covered under the SDPB budget until 2022. And then it moved from there to county administration.
I just want to say, as a member of the Historical Commission, Laura's our new historian over a year now, but she's been doing a great job.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to serve as the county historian for Tompkins County, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I've learned so much, and yet there's so much more to learn. And, this is a fascinating county with a really, really interesting history that goes way back. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our county clerk is next, Maureen Reynolds. Welcome.
Lori's bringing him up.
I see Rachel is here.
Yes, Rachel's here also. So I just want to talk a little bit about our revenue generations. I mean, during COVID, it was craziest real estate I ever saw in my entire life. It's come back to normal-ish. When I met with Norma and the budget team this year, they asked how I felt. I said, I feel pretty good. So it may not be immediate. I know the interest rate just changed. Real estate is still selling for crazy prices. We don't have the refinancing of the mortgage, the refinance fever yet. But I have seen, when you drive around Ithaca, you look at people putting roofs on and they're having their houses painted, other contractors in the driveways. And so people are getting more home equities the last maybe year or so, but the uptick on that has been a lot also. Do I see more refinancing happening in the future? Generally, I see a lot of mortgages that came in 22 to 24 that are getting paid off quickly. I'm not sure, maybe people are using retirement funds, but I think as the rates drop, people will go back to that. As for DMV, we have the car sales slow down for a while because who wants to pay those big interest rates on vehicles? However, leasing was a big priority, or lease buyouts. So we were still seeing all that in the sales tax. So it was still good, but we hope to see more people becoming owners of cars soon. So during COVID, we weren't allowed to conduct any naturalization ceremonies. This is, 3 to 5 days a year of our job that are the best days on earth. And we recently got those back. We held one in July at Cornell at the vet school and the vet college, and that was really nice. Rachel's been working with immigration to make sure we get more of those back. We recently had one last week. Lisa was our speaker. Thank you, Lisa. How happy of a day was that? I mean, my cheeks hurt from smiling.
It's wonderful.
Everyone's happy. It's amazing to see that go on in a courthouse. Usually in a courthouse, it's very somber and you're in trouble. This is a day when everyone's happy. So we're very happy to be getting those back finally. Let's see. So Real ID, this has been put off a few times during the pandemic and again, but it is going to happen, we're told, on May 7th, 2025. So at DMV, we're seeing a big influx of people coming in to get their Real ID licenses or IDs so they can fly domestically. So that will be a deadline coming up on May 7th of 2025 that we'll push out to the public. And then here's my bragging screens. So I've got a great crew at DMV. I got a great crew at the clerk's office. And they work hard, they're efficient, and they are great with customers. Being an elected official, you always want to put your best people on the counter. Well, at DMV, they're all on the counter, and they're really good and friendly. There's, it came through on the strategic plan, and then, the Twitter things about how much they love us. The next screen is one, I just put it up, I took it off the Google reviews, and they just said, they just go on about how amazing our DMV is and how we should train other states. And they just think it's like a Hallmark channel. So I just really happy with all the customer service out of my staff. And if you go one more, please.
Oh, no, let us read that.
Oh, okay. I can't read it, sorry, because I'm old now, so. I'd read it to you. And I can take them, I hope Cortland or Hugo County or somebody else upsets them, because then they're going to come here and I'll take your money, so it doesn't matter. One good thing out of DMV is when the governor passed that new revenue stream, you don't have to come into our office anymore for us to get the money. If you go online and do your business, I'm getting money for work we don't do, which is amazing. It was a gift from the state, so I don't know if they know it, but we are enjoying that. We've been watching that come in every month, like, wow, for stuff we didn't do, which is good because we've always done stuff for free for them, so it's good payback. If you could advance. So I still have my bunker. That's my girl. I've been feeding her for 3 years, the little white deer there. I bring her up apples every time I go visit. Just so you know that we did have, I mean, these are the permanent historic documents of the county, the microfilm. We did have some long-term records up there too. We were almost done scanning those, because when the library closed, we had to get the records out. So that eventually this will be just the land of last resort. So you don't have to run up there as much. I've been going up, or have staff go up about once every month or two. We bring back stuff and get it scanned up so that eventually this is just going to be the safe place for things. If anyone wants to go, let me know. So we do have one OTR this budget season. What I did in the past in order to get grants from New York State Archives is I would have to do procurement through New York State Industries for the Disabled and send my records out to be scanned. And for many, many years, we had Challenge Imaging here who would do that for us. During COVID, they closed. So what I did is I hired on former participants to become permanent county employees. So they work for us, and their ability to of me having them on staff makes it so that I don't have to send our records currently to another NYSED vendor. I recently did a grant. I'll be bringing it to GEO the next meeting. We were awarded $150,000 to do more scanning. This is all due to the fact that I could do it with former employees that save us a lot of money, because for me to ship the records off and have them done, it was 4 times the cost. So we get a lot more stuff done at the cost. So it's all about efficiency.
I'm sorry, NYSED?
New York State Industries for the Disabled.
Thank you.
Yep, so the state we have to either employ NYSED or New York State Industries for the Blind. But I have their former employees, some on staff, so. Is this an OTR that you will need year after year, or is it just a one-time? This is just maintenance of effort, but it's not a big ask for the efficiencies we've done and what we can do with the money. I think we've thought way outside the box, and we offer a good bang for the buck. It allows us to do internally what used to be done at Challenge, so with the scanning.
And these are keeping people within our community
as
employed?
As county employees now, yes.
Great.
Are you done with the presentation? Are you ready for questions?
Oh, sure.
Or do you have more to tell us?
I think that was the last screen. That was the last screen, yeah.
All right. Then let's open it up, start with Travis.
Am I hearing you correctly, or am I assuming correctly that if you don't do this, it'll end up costing us more money?
Yes, because I wouldn't be able to guarantee the work getting done, and I wouldn't get the grant funding.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ann?
And so would you have to lay off the people, some of the people who are currently doing this work? For instance, I worked with people up at Challenge when they were doing that program up there. So you hired people with disabilities who were working at Challenge in this program. So you're hiring you've hired them directly. So would some of these people lose their jobs?
It would be a half-time reduction on one staff person.
One person would have to go to half-time instead of full-time?
Yeah.
Thank you. And it would cost you more money?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to say I actually had 2 constituents who had DMV issues, and I contacted the DMV, and they were kind of complicated, kind of weird ones, and they were solved, so thank you.
Was it solved, the final one? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I was looking at your budget for this year and your revenue. It looks like you're going to not reach your revenue projections for the mortgage tax and those kinds of things. Do you think you're?
I don't know. I mean, there's still a few months left in this year.
Okay.
And the rates just dropped. I know it's going to take a little while to catch up, but people want to fix up their homes.
Right.
And they don't want to take it from their retirement accounts, or, so I'm thinking it's, people are going to, I don't know. I can't make predictions on that.
Okay. And so you're budgeting for 2025, did you drop it a little bit?
I think I did, but I still was optimistic, and with the new DMV revenue stream, which was very nice. So yeah, I think we're okay.
Yeah, looking at your DMV budget, I mean, with all the revenue that you get, it's a wash now as far as expenses versus revenue. So if you got that extra revenue in, would that be a plus that, I mean, that you could use elsewhere, or?
No, so, well, it would be a revenue for the county, yeah, because I pay all my revenues over the county, so yeah.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? I'd just like to say not only is DMV appreciated, but also your counter in the courthouse for all your deed records and litigation records. Your people are there just as wonderful.
Yeah, just so you know, I got back from 2 days. I was in Skinny Atlas, and people bring us in to talk about what we've done because I can't believe that we've done it and why other counties don't. And so this was bringing other county clerks in to speak to these parties on how we can do this together and how it makes sense. So I'm very proud of our county and our staff. So,
well, thanks to both of you for coming, and we'll listen. We've listened to you, and we will take these things into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we have our information technology services.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I guess Lauren's on the screen.
Taking advantage of a little technology tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Where's Kim?
And there's Kim.
Kim's on the screen as well. Kim Moore. Whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you. So jumping right in to some of our major factors impacting the 2025 ITS budget. The first one is we've seen some major increases in the cost of our service contracts, and we've seen that industry-wide, anywhere from 15 to 30% increase in mostly software contracts. We have been able to leverage quite a few several New York State provided solutions to no cost to the county. Things like CrowdStrike endpoint detection and response, security information and event management systems, intrusion detection systems. But we still have quite a few service contracts like Microsoft, VMware, and Varonis, which is cybersecurity software. So another factor in our budget is the amount of time that we are spending on cybersecurity initiatives. We're finding that things like election security mandates, increased cyber activity, we are seeing more phishing attacks, more brute force attacks. So it kind of touches every person within our department throughout the day. I do want to mention that I have amazing staff. I don't think we could do what we do every day without the staff that we have. I mean, everybody rolls up their sleeves every day to get through all the initiatives that we have to do. Things like patch management, the more devices that we put on the network are more devices that we have to patch. For example, we have almost every single conference room in the county set up for, video meetings like this. We just opened a backup center up up at the East Hill Plaza, and that adds another location, a bunch more computers, another 24/7 location that we need to support. We do certainly have a lot of new initiatives, things like the Code Blue facility that you're all familiar with, trying to provide network, cameras, computers, onboarding new staff for that facility. And we are in the middle of helping most departments modernize legacy systems, old software. We're also planning for increased infrastructure for building security, things like wireless panic buttons, and we've got the beginning stages of remodeling the dispatch center, just to name a few. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Kim to talk about our first OTR.
Thank you, Lauren. So we do have two OTRs that we're going to be presenting tonight.
The first OTR is to reinstate one FTE on our GIS team. They're a fabulous and small team, and they are about so much more than just mapping. So for us, if the GIS analyst position does not exist in 2025, this is a little bit of an overview of what our world would likely look like. We would likely have to drop some new and exciting initiatives. We've been looking at a centralized 911 addressing plan. It's something we've been discussing this past year with county admin and local municipalities. More recently, Charlene has really energized our team to use their skills for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. For example, the cooperative efforts that we use to visualize the census data and how that fits into our existing and proposed legislative districts. We'd be halting future dashboarding projects. It should be noted that GIS was the foundation for the Sheriff's Transparency Hub, and we'd likely have to limit or end municipality support as we currently offer these for our Esri software, which is our GIS mapping software, and we also offer mapping and application support. We'd be looking at reducing other services that we offer to fellow county departments, including, for example, the youth services summer camp applications. We work really closely with the planning department, and we would need to reimagine our GIS efforts, like the agricultural districts, trail projects, and things of that nature. And for example, this year we worked with Board of Elections using GIS to identify optimal voting locations. And these are the type of enhanced services that we would have to limit or possibly cut from our work plan. So with the reduction in size, our team's focus would really be limited to critical functions. So we'd really just be focusing on 911 CAD addressing and mapping maintenance, and supporting our assessment team with tax mapping routines. As you heard Jay talk about last evening, they've recently absorbed the tax mapping supervisor role back into their department, but we still need to work closely with them, especially in this first year as they transition that role back. Now, as Lauren mentioned, there are a number of legacy systems that require updates or replacement, and most of these systems have GIS components, and we'd be really hard pressed to include these in our work plan without a full staff. So we mentioned assessments, much needed software replacement, a little plug for Jay there, and environmental health's Excella systems upgrade or replacement. And there's multiple Department of Emergency Response programs and projects, including the migration of our back-end Esri services to a more modern solution, implementation of Rapid SOS, and a much needed update to get the text to 911 plan in place. So for Lauren and I, the challenge tonight really lies in striking a delicate balance between presenting a bleak outlook and providing you guys a clear and accurate portrayal of the realities of what this cut really means to our GIS team. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren for our second OTR.
The second OTR is for public wireless in 4 locations, one of them being in the legislative chambers, the other 2 at Whole Health, and then the 4th one at the old jail conference room. Primarily this public wireless has been for clients or constituents to connect to stable internet while they're at our facility. So with that said, that ends our presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you both. Open up for questions. Veronica Pillar.
I confess this is not a question, but just relevantly, I'm on the public Wi-Fi right now in this building, and if we didn't have it, I would not, at the moment, have a way of accessing the budget book without borrowing someone else's. So I appreciate it.
Me too.
Let's go to Greg, then Randy.
Yeah, just to clarify my colleague's comment, though, this OTR doesn't mean public Wi-Fi goes away, right?
It does. So right now, the Wi-Fi, there's two separate Wi-Fis in the ledge chambers. There's anybody that has a county device can jump on the corporate Wi-Fi. Anybody with a personal device should be using the public wireless. So if you have a county device joined to the network, no problem. You can be on the corporate network, but the public Wi-Fi in this OTR, if it doesn't get funded, we would. Yeah, that would go away.
So to offer public Wi-Fi in all of the county departments which are listed, it costs us $12,000, or is that to manage the access points? What is the $12,000 actually paying for?
Sure. So we have a separate years back, we have a separate network that just is public Wi-Fi. It doesn't cross over onto the corporate network. So we were, security reasons, bandwidth, all of those things, we didn't want it on the corporate network.
So I guess that still doesn't, is that paying, like, do we own the hardware?
No, we actually run it all from First Light. So the hardware, the access points, and then we pay for the 35 meg bandwidth per location.
Okay, so this covers hardware and connectivity.
Correct.
Okay. You guys were super helpful to me today, and I greatly appreciate that. So please don't take my next comment to be anything other than I appreciate all the work that you do. I'm a little.
If your phone doesn't work after this comment, I'm not to blame.
But here comes the but. I'm a little perplexed that in a world where we talk about accessibility and connected government, that one, this wouldn't be a recommended OTR, and two, that this was even an OTR for consideration, right? Because the other alternative is, as legislators, as 14 of us, we sit around the table and we go through and we find the $12,689 in the ITS budget to cut somewhere else so that we can keep accessibility as a priority. It's shocking to me a little bit that this somehow aligned with our values as an organization and as a county to cut this and put this forward, and then to not recommend accessibility in our buildings. That's my personal statement. I understand that we have the hard decisions to make.
Okay, we're trying not to make speeches tonight.
That's fine, but I'm going to take a minute because other people have. It's stuff like, I don't know. I'll stop because I know everybody wants to move on and we'll wait till we start voting. But I'm shocked that this even made it this far and then also wasn't recommended when we talk about accessible government and accessible buildings and things like that.
We hear you.
I guess I'm just disappointed. Please don't cut me off, but thank you.
Well, we talked about what we're trying to do in these presentations to ask clarifying questions. You started out with some.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Great. Lauren and Kim, could you guys explain the $11,000 in travel and training and why that wasn't recommended to be reduced at all?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, with all those technology things that I mentioned earlier, we could double that travel and training budget and still not have enough. I mean, Kim and I, we hardly do any travel and training ourselves, and in order to keep on the cutting edge with this new software, I mean, we have more applications and software than we have people to run them. And if we don't send people out to get trained on those, it's like having a car that you can't drive. So I couldn't, if I cut the travel and training, it would be basically, that would be devastating.
Randy, then Deborah.
Yes, I have a question. I'm looking at your employee count from the last few years, and it looks like you had 16 FTEs in 2023, 15 in 2024, and with the 5% cut, it takes you down to 13, but you're looking for one more to replace one of the GIS analysts from 2 right now. Is that your plan?
Yeah, that would just keep that position, yes. And yeah, we have gone since 2022 from 16 total positions down to presented 13, but, or I'm sorry, yeah.
Down to 13, yes.
Down to 13, yeah. So we're hoping to keep that GIS analyst position, which is that OTR.
Okay, thank you.
Norma needed to get in for a comment.
I just wanted to, from the booth up above, Rob wanted to make sure that folks knew that without the Wi-Fi, it would mean non-county staff could not present Zoom in the chambers, so.
Well, that pretty much does that.
Thank you. Deborah.
Yeah, I have a question, not just about ITS's budget, but just generally, and maybe this would address Mr. Mezzi's concern about how the heck this got as far as it did. So when we cut, this question really for probably Lisa and Corey, when we cut 5% across the board from departments. We don't tell them where to take that 5%, do we?
No.
No, that's up to them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you got that question answered. Other questions? Pretty important department, not a lot of questions. Maybe you're going to get off easy, Lauren.
I'll take the win.
We thank you both for coming in tonight and talking to us, and we appreciate the comments you've made, and we will be talking about your over targets and others when we get into our next series of meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're doing pretty good. We're only 5 minutes over tonight. So we're going to ask our Tompkins County Public Library folks. It looks like we've got a lot of them here tonight. That's wonderful. Leslie Tabor. Maybe you'll tell us all the people you've got.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Leslie Tabor, the director of the Tompkins County Public Library. This is our brand new business manager, Tanya Van Camp. So
Welcome.
ask her lots of questions she won't know the answers to. I'd also like to point out that because libraries love civic engagement, we have a large contingency here this evening representing the Friends of the Library, the TCPL Foundation, staff, and our Board of Trustees. I'd like to thank Carrie Barnes for being here, the director of the foundation, and also Melissa Seidel, the president of the Board of Trustees, and Casey Ryan, the president of the Friends of the Library.
Your time is important to us. Thank you.
So I wanted to begin with some contextual information. The Tompkins County Public Library proudly serves the over 105,000 residents of the county as a whole. Visit information is something that people are always interested in. So you can see our historic visits starting in 2019. It's almost as if something big happened in 2020, and we are slowly coming back from that. Our year-to-date visits so far as of September 15th is at 159. So we are on track to outpace last year. We're very proud of that. There are many public libraries across the nation that have not been able to bounce back, either because of lack of public interest and use or funding availability. We are open 60 hours per week, 6 days per week, and we offer 18 seasonal Sundays in the fall and the spring. We are currently in our fall rotation, so come on down and see us between 1 and 5 on Sunday. We have 43 FTE in various civil service job titles: pages, clerks, senior clerks, library assistants, librarians 1, 2, and 3. Myself as the director, which is also a librarian 4, our business manager, our administrative manager, and our account clerk. I would also like to say thank you. This legislature has been very generous to the library and to restoring us to pre-COVID numbers, so we really, really appreciate that. In case it's helpful, we've also included allocation history. Again, starting in 2019, you can see the allocations from all of you, and that it is on pace in terms of keeping up with inflation and other costs. We received 2 out of 3 OTRs last year, so again, we really appreciate your support. Library budget factors that we are considering in terms of the 2025 budget. Projected benefit increases, which I'm sure you're aware of through the consortium. Contractual labor increases. Mike, I know you always ask where we're at with our labor contracts, both for the professional staff and the support staff. They end December 31st of this year, so we are entering into negotiations with both associations. We will begin with the professional staff, and then when that is concluded, move on to support staff. And our members are a part of the UAW Local 2300, which is the same as some of our brothers and sisters up the hill at Cornell. We also have routine projected operating increases, software and hardware. You do not want me running your GIS, so I just wanted to point that out from the previous presentation, but we do have a lot of use of our software and hardware at the public library, both on the staff side and the public side. We also are aware of increases from library vendors with their products, and then things like security, which are essential for operations and was a part of one of our OTRs last year. So in terms of the 5% reduction from 2024, just to walk you through math, and remember, I'm a librarian, not a mathematician, that's why I brought Tanya. If our maintenance of effort budget last year was at 4.2, a 5% reduction of that puts us right at 4.0. And then with our estimated operating increases, that is the funding deficit of over 500,000. Those are still preliminary numbers. So for example, if the numbers from health benefits continue to go up, that number will increase. There are several layers of impacts. So the first is at the New York State level. There's potential for creating a domino effect from our maintenance of effort failure. That could impact service hours, which are set based on service area by the state. I failed to mention that Sarah Glagowski, Executive Director of the Finger Lakes Library System, is here, and she is absolutely the expert on questions if you have that about our relationship with the state. It also has the potential to impact state funding for library materials. They assess our operational hours, the maintenance of effort budget, they compare it across the previous 2 years, and hopefully we are within an average number, or it could impact the budget. There is calculations behind that, but that's a pretty simple way of looking at it. The most direct impact of the 5% reduction would impact and require a workforce reduction. So to mitigate that over $500,000, we would be considering layoffs of approximately 5 to 7 positions. We would be looking to make the fewest layoffs, of course, with the most impact. So it really comes down to whatever our final numbers are. We would have to take a look and assess that. We are absolutely in conversation with county HR to talk about civil service rules and how those processes are laid out in the rules and what they look like in practical application. The third layer of impacts is to the public. A workforce reduction or an impact to our budget or service hours would impact our community members. We always want to prioritize serving patrons in real-time, face-to-face at service desks, so that would continue to be our priority. We would anticipate that with fewer staff, there would be an impact to collection maintenance. That includes ordering, assessing, weeding, reader's advisory, things of that nature. Fewer programs and fewer partner program opportunities. It takes a lot of staff effort. Everything we do is because of the great work of our library workers, and if there are fewer of them, there's less opportunity for us to provide programs. And then also less community outreach. It always continues to surprise us that there are people in this county that I have not yet pestered about a library card, but they are out there, and so an important part of our work is letting them know that the library is for them and the library is a resource. We have things like free public Wi-Fi. You can print off your resume. You can come in and talk to a librarian about genealogy. So continuing to put in effort to reach out to other programs and citizens is very important to us. So we would have to think really thoughtfully about how to reduce that with the least amount of impact. We did put forth one over-target request this year on a wink and a prayer, and it did not get approved, which I think is probably the standing order of the day. This OTR was really just to address our operating increases. The total was a little over $216,000. We totally understand that there wasn't a lot in light of the budget that could come through as approved to you. So that concludes my brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or talk about what I'm reading.
Well, thank you, and let's open it up for questions. I see Randy first.
Thank you for the presentation. I was reviewing your, thank you for the numbers about how many people have visited and stuff. I really appreciate that, to know it's really what's going on firsthand. I was reviewing your 2023 audit, okay, and your 2024 audit.
Great.
And your unallocated reserves increased about $300,000, it appears, from that audit, from 2023 to 2024, which took it over $1.5 million. So and if I remember correctly, last year you mentioned that your policy is 15% of your operating budget that you need to have minimum in your reserves, which would be about $650,000. So my question is, why aren't you considering using some of your reserves for your budget?
Thank you, Randy. I knew this question was coming. So we actually have a newly established fund balance policy from the board, and I brought copies, and I'm happy to email them out later. Our policy is actually no more than 25%. So if you look at last year's budget of 4.2, I think we're currently at around 1.25, so we're right in alignment with the board's policy in terms of unassigned fund balance.
Sorry, your actual audit report said it was $1.5 million something from your 2024 audit, the one I received. It was $1.2 million in 2023.
Okay.
And I'm going by memory, and God, I could be wrong, right? So, but I remember correctly, I think it was over $1.5 million.
Sure. Our fund balance per policy should not be used for recurring expenses like personnel and fringe. The board's intention with that is usually it goes toward one-time capital expenses. So for example, if the library flooded and we had to replace all of the shelving and all of the books, that would be a one-time expense. It may also go toward future goals such as a library outreach vehicle, or things of that nature. But again, we do not intend to use that for recurring expenses like personnel, like salaries or fringe.
I have a question. That is, the reading rooms in Danby and Caroline, how are they going? And we don't hear much about them lately.
They are going well. That's definitely one area that we are constantly looking to grow. Staff are very excited about things like outreach or an outreach vehicle so that we could use that to expand things like Wi-Fi access. We are building our relationship with Enfield, so food pantries, things of that nature. Caroline and Danby are a little more self-sustaining at this point, and I think between the transition of having a new director in, there just hasn't been the time quite yet to really sit down and look at ways to partner and expand that, but that always remains on our radar.
You keep track of the usage of those rooms?
Keep track of volunteer hours, but I have yet to see any type of visit count, but that's certainly something we could look into.
Just one. Who had their hand over here? Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned that you have 43 FTEs. Are all those positions filled?
No. We currently have several library assistant positions vacant because of resignations.
Okay, because it's been my experience when I've stopped by, there's nobody at the front desk. If I want to check a book out, I've got to either go to that resource desk or go to the children's library area. I've seen empty shelves. We've heard a lot of griping from members of the community. I see a 15% increase in your budget ask from 2022 to 2024 till this year. And I look at your budget, and all I get is a statement of expenses. It's like a black hole. So is there some way that you could make it more comfortable for us to be allocating $4 million so that we understand how it's being used and where it's going?
85% of the budget is used for personnel and benefits. So we are a service agency and, public government agency, so that's the majority of where the funding goes. There is information on the public website of the breakdown of revenues and expenses, but the majority of the county allocation has always gone and will always go to providing personnel and fringe. In terms of, I'm happy to speak to the changes that you mentioned if you'd like me to. I'm also happy to talk about that offline with you if you'd like.
Well, yeah, but if I understand that most of your money is going to personnel, but if you're down X number of employees, then you're not using your allocation. And what happens in the county when a department does that is the money comes back into fund balance, but what happens when we give it to you, I guess, is that you get to keep it, right?
Yes, it's a one-time allocation, so we do not return anything back.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Amanda?
On that topic, I emailed Leslie a month ago and asked for a budget, like a full library budget that would include, a lot of these details that we see from our departments, and she could not provide that to me. I don't know if you have a draft budget now, or if you could explain when you would have your budget that we could see.
So the board oversees the budget, and that goes through Finance and Personnel Committee and goes to the board at large. So before the Finance and Personnel Committee has approved any sort of working budget, I can't share it. I'm happy to share a detailed 2024 budget. We've shared that with Rich John as our new liaison. I believe you probably had a copy of that as well. Okay. So I'm happy to reshare 2024s if you would like. But there's nothing that's been approved from the board for me to share yet in terms of draft or a final.
Right, but it's public money. I mean, what your process, your finance meetings, they shouldn't be private. Like, none of that should be private.
Correct, they're not.
But you just said you can't provide any of that to us.
There's like literally nothing to provide right now. There's estimates, like here's 2024, here's benefits, so 14% increase of that is an estimated number. But again, the board's budget cycle really begins in earnest after we get firm numbers from the legislature for our allocation.
Don't really remember that from previous years, but okay. It's just surprising to me that you don't have some sort of draft budget that at this point in the year that the board would be talking about, looking at, preparing to vote on to support. My other question is about the TCPL status as the central library of the system. Is that still your status after all the weeding?
Yes, it is. And
you haven't gotten any concerns or notification from the state?
The state actually looked into concerns and have found nothing out of order. We followed policy. We're not in violation of anything, so everything according to the last communication we received from them is fine.
Okay, can I ask one other thing?
Sure.
I'd like to ask Sarah Gogowski if that's true.
Wait, could we, if you need to respond, you'd need to come to a microphone.
Just what the status of the TCPL, I don't know if it's called accreditation or the status of it as the central library in our system.
Yes, they're the central library.
And with all the weeding, I know there was rules about how many books they had to have on the site to have that status.
No, not exactly. There was, how do we want to explain this?
About the complaint?
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Do you have a preference who you would like to explain?
No.
So there was a complaint about weeding at a state level. There was communication to the library, and the state library, Leslie is correct, the state library views that as settled.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna.
I think part of the concern is that whenever agencies receive funding from the county, like part of our job is to make sure that we know where the money's going. And especially in a really difficult year like this, where we are going to have to make cuts, there needs to be some type of accounting backup and a real case for providing the funding. Because we don't want to raise taxes where people can't afford to live here. Whenever we look at the request here, I mean, it's for a budget that's a lot of money, we see a single sheet of paper that doesn't give any background, it doesn't provide any numbers, and for us looking at our OTR sheet, and you guys are asking for an additional $216,000, I mean, that would raise our tax rate 0.25% for everyone to be able to afford that. And so as much as we've all been proponents and advocates of the library, you guys are making it really hard for us to do that this year. So I hope we get more background information. I hope there can be some transparency as far as your funding and your accounting and the ins and outs. But it makes me sad that we're not seeing that today.
I would like to clarify that the request was for a draft working budget for 2025, which I do not have, but I am more than happy to provide a full 2024 budget, which has line items. If I missed that request coming back, I deeply apologize, but I can send that out today to the clerk tonight. And again, what we're doing is just basic looking at the lines and estimating, okay, here might be an average of a 9% increase. Okay, the consortium told us a 14% increase right here. But again, our Finance and Personnel Committee's true work comes after we get numbers from you guys to try to make it work. So it is absolutely not that we're trying to hide anything. It's like, I literally don't have anything to give you, but I'm happy to give you a full line by line of the 2024 budget, which I think would be very helpful.
To see a 2025 budget from them?
I think
that's not good. So by law, they don't have to have a budget for the New York State Library. They do not, they follow a January 1st fiscal year. TCPL follows a January 1st fiscal year. They do not have to pass, the board does not have to pass a budget until December of 2024. So it is early for them to provide a 2025 budget.
I mean, I think the concern is, though, is that we're seeing fewer and fewer patrons each year. And I get it, COVID, you know, you're trying to ramp back up, but we haven't necessarily seen the staff increases and decreases. And in fact, what we've seen from this legislature is each year, despite the fact you're having fewer and fewer visitors, we're giving you more and more money. And so I think there has to be some equation, some balance of the amount of money we give you versus how many people you're serving. So.
All right, let's go to Randy, then Veronica.
I think it would be helpful for me if you could show where you are in your 2024 budget as far as expenses and income so far this year. You need to give us an idea. Because if you're under budget this year, then that money is going to add to your reserves, so which are already a little bit high. But I have a question from administration. How do we pay the library? Is it a monthly fee, or is it based on expenses, or how does that work?
I would have to check I believe it's quarterly.
It's a quarterly voucher.
Yeah,
it's quarterly.
Okay, thank you.
Veronica?
Yeah, thanks for, I guess, whoever's asking for the 2024 budget. I would find that helpful to see, so thanks for offering to send it. I don't think it's weird at all that we don't have a 2025 budget from them. Maybe I'm confused, but I think, for instance, our city reps told us last week that they would have their budget presented to them, I think 8 days from now. And so I imagine if we were knocking on their door asking, where's your budget? They would be like, you can't see it, even the draft one. Or if the state had come knocking on our door even a week before Lisa presented her recommended budget, I imagine you would tell them, like, you have to wait, it's coming on this day. And I don't know, this seems normal to me, but assuming that if it's anything like ours and your budget year after year has a lot of the same things in it, then the 2024 budget would be very helpful. Because yeah, unfortunately, we don't see the agency budgets, the ins and some of the ins and outs like we do our departments.
So typically, libraries that follow January 1st fiscal year start their budget meetings with their finance committees, et cetera, the director, usually in October, November, pass a draft budget in December, and then pass their budget in January. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with a library this size that is reliant on county funding, town funding, village funding, anything of that nature, this is really the first step of seeing what they're going to be getting from a funding entity, then take that into account, and then create their budget in October, November. So I do not, as a system director, I do not find it unusual that they do not have a 2025 budget today. I don't have a 2025 budget in my system.
Deborah.
Yeah, I think the difference is And Sarah, you sort of outlined this chicken and egg problem. The difference is that if somebody came to us and said, I want to see your budget, and we said, we don't have it yet. If it was a person who was asking us, or we were asking them for a significant amount of money, they would want to see what we were going to use it for. That's the difference.
So as per minimum standards of New York State, any member of the public can go in today and ask any staff member at any desk, including Leslie, clerks, et cetera, and all staff members have to know how to provide it. A full budget for 2024 has to be provided that anyone walks in the building. Budget information has to be online. It doesn't have to be a line-by-line budget. The state is vague in wording under minimum standards for that, but they are in compliance that they have a passed budget. Their staff know how to give a budget out if someone comes in. They meet all minimum standards in terms of libraries, in terms of budgets. They have the minimum standard is a passed budget and the ability to hand a passed budget out if someone comes in immediately and asks for it, which they do. And as a monthly meeting, they approve finances every month. So those finances are, given out on a monthly basis during their board meetings too. If anyone has questions, you can look at that.
That might be really helpful if you would just share an online link to that budget with the members of this legislature.
Sure, and I think I provided that to Amanda, but I'm happy to send that with the rest of the information.
Thank you.
Norma, was that a hand?
No.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I understand the concern. We're going to move to voting meetings, and if there's some further information to forecast where you see the 2025 budget going, that probably would be really helpful for us to see. I understand what the minimum standards are, and 2024 is great, but we're trying to figure out next year. So I think the conversation should continue.
If I may, if it would be helpful to the members of the legislature, I can provide projections for our full staff wages and salaries and benefits for the year of 2024. So I can provide actual numbers for 2024 up until this point and projections for the remainder of the year. Since the county is primarily funding staffing, I feel like that would be helpful to you if you're interested.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
I would need at least, when is voting taking place?
Next week.
Okay.
That would be very helpful.
All right.
Thank you.
Lee?
Just a general question. What is your 2024 total budget? And I'm interested in knowing what the percentage of revenues the county is providing toward that.
The lion's share. So our final amended budget for 2024, Tompkins County provided the MOE of $4,244,682. Our total budget was $5,236,068. So it's significant.
A little over 80%.
Correct. So a little over 80% of our budget, and 75 to 80% of that goes to personnel and fringe. I would also like to add, I forgot to mention this in my presentation, as part of the 5% reduction from the county's own budget office, they have proposed cutting our audit, so we will also be taking that expense on.
Okay, and the request is $216,000 for maintenance of effort. And in your slideshow earlier, were you referencing a $500,000 cut?
Yes, so
I'm trying to correlate the two of those.
the 216 would basically restore from a 5% cut to a 0%, which is the first budget we were told to prepare a 0% and a 5% cut. So even at 0%, we're projecting a deficit of around 308,000. So the total of the OTR and then that additional deficit is what gets us to the over $500,000. So again, that's because of a 5% cut, which only gets us back to 0, but has no factors for additional increases. So there's a cut budget, a flat budget, and then the ideal budget.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Rich?
Yeah, just I'm scrolling through email. I seem to have the 23 budget, but I don't see the 24. So if you could send it out, that'd be great.
I have a note to do so.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for coming in and talking to us about your budget. Sarah, thank you for the enlightenment of some of the questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry for the gauntlet.
Oh, I expected it.
We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back and do Board of Elections, and then we're going to go into executive session, if this group chooses to. Okay, we're back in session. And the presentation is from, last but not least, certainly, our Board of Elections. And Alana Cogden and Steve DeWitt are both with us on Zoom. Welcome, and when you're ready, we'd be glad to hear from you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have a pretty short and sweet presentation tonight. Just a couple things about the Board of Elections this year. We have implemented our new voting machines and a new election management system. In 23 of our poll sites, we're using print on demand, which should be saving us about $12,000 on the cost of having our ballots printed by the vendor. For the general election so far, here are some numbers that we have. Year to date, for new or transfer in county voter registrations, we have 3,227 as of Sunday evening. Early vote by mail requests, 1,659 for the general election. And then absentee ballot requests, there's 2,077 so far. And we get, you know, anywhere from 50 to 100 a day. So we're pretty busy with those right now. So our 5% cut would be about $53,000, which means there would be a reduction in staff and a reduction in our program expenses and program supplies. We do have 2 OTR requests. The first one's for election workers. This would bring us up to funding 2 elections per year. You know, we employ 200 poll workers, about $340 a person plus 40 for training. And this one was recommended for approval. The second one comes at a good time. We're working with Dominic on the website. And one of the things that I find very hard to display on the website is past results. And this program would allow for easy searching for candidates, ballot propositions, and contests. New York State actually uses this program on the BOE website, and they've gotten some pretty good feedback on it. And they would take our results back from 2000 to the present. It would be uploaded into the software. And we would provide the data to our election staff, and they would upload the results. That would save us both staff time on uploading the results and working with the public to provide those results to them. And it's an all-inclusive price. So, and like I said, it'd be short and sweet. So if you guys have any questions?
Well, we appreciate that. Let's open it up for questions. Who has questions? I'll start. Can you explain some of the differences between the old voting machines and the new ones?
The newer ones are faster. There's less hardware in them, so they're easier to fix and maintain. Steve, you have anything you want to add?
Well, the way they present themselves to the voter is very similar, at least for the scanning portion. The voter's still going to mark their paper ballot. They're still going to insert it into the scanner. The big difference is that the ADA component, which used to be integrated into the previous machine, is now a separate unit, which I think is a good thing. And you know, but as far as the voter is concerned, I think if they do use the ADA component, they'll find it easier. It's had very little, if no use for about 10 years. But as far as regular voting, they won't see any difference.
Yeah, so you just touched on a question I would have about that. You said almost no use in the last 10 years of the ADA compliant machines?
As far as using the ballot marking device portion, that's correct. I think 2012 was the last time we had a voter use it.
Because that was the big push. I remember when they made us change machines, and I think it's very interesting. Apparently, most disabled people prefer to do the absentee ballots. Other questions? Randy, then Lee.
Yes, you said that there's 2 elections a year. Is that the primaries and then the general election? Is that the 2?
Yeah.
Okay. And where on your budget is the storage of your voting machines? Is that under all other contractual services? Is that what that would be? $69,000?
The voting machines are stored up at Hanshaw Road, and I believe that's covered by facilities budget. It's a rental.
I'm sorry, where is it stored?
Up at Hanshaw Road,
Okay.
1771 Hanshaw.
It's in the facilities budget, she's saying.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. And what happened to the old machines?
We had them destroyed. They went through the process of, destroying the motherboards and getting certifications. That was done, and then they went off to be scrapped.
Okay, thank you.
Lee?
Just a question, a couple of questions probably. You now, in recent years, have incorporated all the election workers into the county budget rather than town budgets, correct?
Yes.
You've absorbed all of that. And when you have a presidential election year and there's presidential primaries, do we do 1 year allotments or appropriations, or are you, for those workers, carrying the same number forward each time? Next year you may have a handful of primaries, some of the municipalities, but you won't have a countywide presidential primary. Does that variation reflect in the request?
No, this would just be for a 2 election year. When the presidential primary would come around, we would ask for another, like an OTR one time.
Okay, so we did an OTR for a presidential year?
Yes.
Okay, and this reflects going back to a base budget of a off-year election?
Correct.
And then when you have a state election year, there's also a potential of federal primaries separate from locals. Is that still?
Not anymore, Lee. Federal primaries are on the same day as the state and local primaries.
They've moved back to June?
June, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks. That answers the question, Steve and Alana.
Anyone else? And Corman.
Thank you. I'm looking at the link that was provided for election results for I guess that was for and you were, I guess I'll let you explain that is this the site you would use, or it's similar to this if you got the software?
It would be very similar to that. The searching capabilities would be the same. The only thing different is we wouldn't have the map that one shows, because the map is an additional charge that we just don't think that we need right now. But it shows the ease of using the software. You can plug in a candidate's name, or you can plug in information about a proposition or a contest, and it, filters everything out for you pretty quickly. It's pretty nice.
Okay, I'm not seeing how to put anything in but a date and maybe for the archived. Is that what it would be under?
The archive, yeah. And the first box, I believe there is a date range, and then if you hit, if I can bring mine up there.
Oh, you did?
I just played. What are you looking for?
I was just looking to see if you could put in somebody's name or something else. It says year range, election dates, reports.
You can.
You
Go ahead
can?
and hit start search right there.
Hit the search button.
Just this?
Yes.
Oh, press search and it'll give you something
And now
else.
you can put in more stuff.
Yeah, so now you can put in governor, or if you wanted to search by name, you could put the candidate's name in there.
Okay.
Or,
I see it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Other questions? Not seeing any. Alana and Steve, we really appreciate your coming in tonight, waiting to the end to share with us your presentation and answer our questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Under the New York State Public Officers Law, executive sessions can be held, and in this case, since we need one, it has to do with medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. I wonder if I could get a motion to go into executive session by Randy, seconded by Veronica. All those in favor, let's have hands. No, she says I have to have a roll call. All right.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Blaine?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
13 ayes.
Okay, we'll go into executive session. We'll take a few minutes to shut down the cameras. Dan, who would you like to stay?
Just the legislators, Ruby and Katrina.